What's up everybody, Chuck Bailey with the Bass Channel, and today we're going to be doing another Big 3 shootout. Boss, EHX, and MXR Dunlop, and we're going to be getting into octaves. Let's check it out. So, octaves, right? Like, it's something that every bass player loves to mess with. So with that, we're gonna be focusing on the Boss OC-5, the MXR Bass Octave Deluxe, and the EHX Nano POG. They all offer relatively the same things and also not the same things. They have their pros and cons, and we're gonna go into that, and you're gonna see for yourself if you haven't had the opportunity to own one or play one, but you've played another, you'll agree and disagree depending on what you like. But one thing's for sure, they all have a very unique character and a flavor to them, and it's tough. It's tough. What you decide. The OC-5 sports a tracking engine based on some of Boss's top-tier effect floorboards, resulting in one of the smoothest, low-latency octave effects you'll ever experience. A dedicated instrument switch tailors the OC-5's tracking for either electric and acoustic guitar or bass, while a parallel direct-out dry path preserves your signal for running into a dedicated amp or PA. Let's move on. We're gonna go to the MXR Bass Octave Deluxe. Dual voice octave pedal, analog tone, true bypass. Bass players specifically will love the separately processed voiced octave controls, growl, which focuses on the more throaty mid-range octave below tone, and girth for deep and smooth octave below tone. Mid plus switch adds up to 15 decibels of mids, which is internally adjustable in the chassis of the MXR Bass Octave Deluxe from 400 Hertz to 800 Hertz. Last but not least, certainly not least, the EHX Nano POG. Electro Harmonics now offers the Nano POG Polyphonic octave generator pedal, 3 triple word score, giving you the same 12-string organ and brand new sounds as the other POG pedals in the line. But now you can save even more pedal board real estate with the smallest version of this classic design yet. It works great with bass too. Better, it's on their damn channel, giving you some truly funky options to tweak your tone. Get all the octave control and glitchless operation you love without having to pull another pedal from your board with the Electro Harmonics Nano POG. Man, what a pitch, right? So here's their focus, right? Tiny footprint, huge sound and octave capabilities. That's what their thing is. Give the bass player the night off. Psh. Yeah, right. The premise of the Boss OC-5 is it's basically a modern take from the OC2, and it's the future model of the OC3. There was a lot of favor when octave pedals were specifically the Boss octave pedal. It came out in 1982. The OC2 had a character and a presence about it that were super amazing for bass players, and naturally that's what drew a lot of the attention for bass players to that pedal. The OC3 wasn't as widely received and it kind of skipped, right? And now the OC-5. This particular pedal, again, the Boss OC-5, seems that everybody focuses on the vintage mode. And the reason why is that it faithfully, according to Boss, faithfully reproduces the mono-octaver sound of the original OC2. So you don't have to pay those outrageous prices for the OC2s online for eBay or Reverb or wherever you're looking. They're saying this pedal can do it. Everybody always equates poly mode to chordal playing, and while that is an obvious part of that, there's a lot more things that are happening too. If you have a more brighter tone and you're playing those lower notes, there's a lot of harmonics and subharmonics that are happening with those lower notes. That's usually why in the monophonic mode or the vintage mode in Boss's case, start to get really glitchy and start losing that note integrity, for lack of a better term. But if you get a chance to play one, put it to poly mode and then play some of the lower notes and you'll hear those subharmonics and those other notes that are kind of glistening, let's use that, over the initial root note that you play. Again, I was one of those guys, players I should say, that my experience with octaves was solely based off of my bias towards the OC2. That was one of the things that I think a lot of people were guilty of, and the OC2, for good reason, is kind of a standard for a lot of people. It's highly sought after still because people are convinced that it is the superior octave pedal compared to other brands. I don't really lean on one way or the other with that. I think that's kind of silly, to go off of everything that everybody else has said as opposed to what your tastes are. The EHX Nano POG is very useful for a lot of other things, just as much as the Bass Octave Deluxe by MXR. I think it comes down to what you're trying to accomplish, the kind of player you are with respect to your attack, your touch, and the tone that you're looking for, because each of these, while they have a similar use as far as their names go with respect to octave effects, they do sound different. And some of them are minute, some of those differences are minute, and some of them are pretty pronounced. Again, it's going to come down to taste. Let's go into a little more detail as far as the pedals for price and the pros and cons for each respective pedal. So the OC-5 comes in at $157.99 was the average retail price for online retailers and brick and mortar stores. The classic Boss Octave Tones offers a poly mode. It's got, as far as pros go, guitar and bass specific switches, which is really nice. The poly range control for the poly mode is a super bonus. It seems to be the most flexible with respect to that mode. And the -2 octave, in our use and what we were able to kind of surmise, doesn't seem very usable on bass because those frequencies are already so low. Subbing that octave down twice on that sub 2, it makes them almost inaudible. Like, unless you're attempting to talk to a humpback whale, I can't see a use for this. So the thing with the Boss OC-5 pedal is it's the most flexible, but maybe not necessarily in the most positive way, right? Like, it offers a little of column A on what it can do, like compared to the MXR Bass Octave Deluxe, and a little of column B on what the Nano POG can do, but it doesn't do any one of those really well. It can do the vintage mode well, but in our use and experience, it seems like the MXR Bass Octave Deluxe did the vintage mode better. And then the octave-up stuff, the Boss OC-5 can do really well, but the Nano POG seemed to do it better. And again, it could be a settings, it could be a player thing, it could be just us. Maybe your opinion is completely different. In my initial approach to this and my experience with the OC-5, while I understand what Chris is saying, I felt like it was a little cooler to have maybe not vanilla, I don't want to say vanilla, but the middle ground, right? Where it can do both of those other pedals, maybe not super well, but you can get something really close to those tones, right? More of a Swiss Army approach, but I understand what Chris is saying, and I can see both sides. But you guys have to be the judges for yourself on if you agree or disagree with that. Let's go with the Bass Octave Deluxe now. So this one's cheaper, $149.99. One of the cons out the gate that Chris brought to my attention, and I didn't really think about it until after, was that it's monophonic only. So you don't have a poly mode, which maybe, you know, what MXR was trying to do didn't focus on that. And that's fine, because what it can do, it sounds amazing, right? To me, I thought it was great. It has great tone and it has a lot more flexibility for the octave as far as what its focus is, the octave down. No octave up on this. Again, no poly, no octave up. That wasn't their core focus for what they thought bass players wanted. And a lot of bass players agree. They don't care about the poly or the octave up stuff. They want a great octave down focused pedal. And MXR's Bass Octave Deluxe, I think, delivers that in spades. It's a very great pedal. It's got a mid switch. We've talked about that earlier, and I think that's awesome. And what's great about the mid switch specifically for the MXR Bass Octave Deluxe is it's tweakable, right? We talked about that as far as the parameters go for the mid-range focus and what they're able to accomplish with the girth and the growl knobs. And I think that's something that draws a special attention and a bonus to this pedal because they have that focus on mid-range, and that's a pretty big deal when it comes to octave pedals. Oh, con on this one, it's only mono output. Is that gonna be the end of the world? No, but it's what it is. The Nano POG. This is surprising to me because usually EHX's stuff is not the most expensive, but this one is. The average price for the Nano POG was $230.40. That's such a random price. It is polyphonic only, so it is the complete opposite of the Bass Octave Deluxe. I would immediately be not enthused with a polyphonic only capable pedal. Granted, people like Jamie Lewis and some of the other guys that we have and gals that we have on the channel are able to make this pedal sound amazing. I am not that person. But I think it's also because I have a bias towards what I would like to see and hear and experience with an octave pedal. I don't care about the spaceship sounds. I think that's great that people can use that and make it sound rad. I cannot, I do not want to, I don't care. I want a good octave down. That's me, right? And I try to be as unbiased as possible. You guys, I've said that many times, and gals, nobody yell at me, I'm including you all. And this is something that I wouldn't be drawn to, personally. One thing that was cool about this pedal was the octave down sounded super deep. And super deep sounds like a really kind of cliche descriptor, but it did. I feel like this pedal leans a lot more on that robotic kind of mechanical octave focus, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but what it can accomplish, even with it being polyphonic only, is some of the notes that it's able to color as far as what you're playing goes sound really low. And that's kind of a cool thing. Sometimes it's almost like maybe too low. I don't think we experience that, but it might be something that you could run into. The octave up, one of the things that I while we're talking about the octave down, I'll go the other way. The octave up almost sounded steel cable. Yeah, it sounded tinny, kind of clangy. Steel cable's perfect. Like, it sounds like the Stormtrooper's blaster. It sounded really fake. One of the things I thought that pedal did really well was that it tracked excellently. And you'll see that tracking for polyphonic stuff, especially if that's a core focus, which this pedal is solely focused on polyphonic, is that polyphonic modes or tone focus usually have great tracking. You'll run into the tracking issues, as we mentioned earlier, in the lower, the monophonic or the sub stuff, depending on where your sub settings are. But the polyphonic stuff and the octave up stuff, even the octave down on polyphonic, is going to track excellent. And this pedal, no question, it tracked great. So in closing, I feel like these pedals, like I said in the beginning, have a specific focus for different types of players. You know, the POG itself, I think, is a really good starting point for octave up and polyphonic players, especially if you're, you know, clicking it on to do some really cool blazing solo and you do that polyphonic focus. It's going to catch all of those fast notes. It's going to track excellent. You still get those octave capabilities, and the chassis is pretty manageable as far as real estate goes through board. You know, the Boss OC-5 to me is one of those pedals where if you've never played an octave pedal, or never used an octave pedal, I should say, that's going to be a great pedal for you as a starting point. It's very easy to use. The interface pedal and the learning curve on it's relatively small. Not that these pedals are difficult to use, but the difficult part is using, like any pedal, and I've made this argument before, not to go off on a tangent, but there's such a weird line in the sand about bass players using pedals, and I've never been that person. I'm not a purist by any sense. I've said this before. I don't have a P Basin flats hanging on the wall that I pray to or anything like that. Jaco is great, but he wasn't one of my influences, and I don't think you have to worry about bass players using or not using pedals. You just worry about your own stuff. This pedal, the Boss OC-5, is a great starting point if you're looking to get into the realm of octave pedals. Like I said, it's built like a tank. It's going to hold up to any kind of accidents or things you may have happen to it. It's still going to work really well. Their customer service is tremendous. They're a huge company. They're very attentive to their players, and your feedback is something that I think they focus on quite a bit. This pedal is, I would say, is going to be your everyday carry, for lack of a better term. It's one of those pedals that you can always count on as far as players go, that they're going to actually have reference for because of the storied history with the OC2. I think this pedal comes incredibly close to what the OC2 does. Maybe not exact, but I don't need exact. I'm not going to pay $360 or $400 or whatever they're going for now for a 40-year-old pedal. Not when I can get one that's pretty damn close for a third of that price. It's a great pedal. Last but not least, the MXR Bass Octave Deluxe. As far as hitting all the checkpoints or check marks for me with tone, style, affordability, the ease of use, and its durability, hands down, it's my favorite. I feel like for what I want from an octave pedal, It hits every mark. Its focus is specific on the octave down. It has an attention towards the mid-range, which I think is huge for octave pedals. It's got a great chassis, it's a beautiful color, and it's really affordable. The MXR Bass Octave Deluxe, for me, is the best representation of what I want out of an octave pedal. I know Chris will agree. We've already talked about that. He also thinks the MXR Bass Octave Deluxe is the best choice of the three for his personal preference. Again, your mileage may vary. These pedals work tremendously well based off of what you can learn from them and how best to use them. It's always a matter of taste. It's always how you can use the effect tastefully for the song. If you're a jazz musician and you want to have those, like I said, those blazing solos, you might not necessarily want to have a focus on the MXR Bass Octave Deluxe because it doesn't offer that poly mode. So those notes could get a little garbled as you're making these crazy runs. The Boss OC-5 offers the poly mode, albeit it's not as good as the Nano, but it can get you there. That's why I mean, it just really depends on what your intentions are. So in closing, they're all hitting in different areas, and I guess this one's kind of a wash. For me, again, it's the Octave, the MXR pedal, but they all do different things really well for different styles of players, and that's what's rad, is like everyone's got an option. It's gonna really come down to what you want out of it. I want to give a big thanks to zZounds for helping us as usual. They are super rad to work with and we love them over there. They sent us all these pedals for this video. If you liked what you heard or you want to try those pedals, the links are going to be down below. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, like the video, comment, dislike it, whatever you want. Make sure you can check out our YouTube membership options too. There's lots of additional behind the scenes content, other focus videos, lots more opinions, lots more emphasis on different tests and things like that for the gear that we've shown you, and it's super cheap. Check it out. Let me know what you thought in the comments. What pedal was your favorite? What did you like? What did you dislike? How ugly am I? It doesn't hurt my feelings anymore. I've told you I don't feel things anymore. I just want you, bass players, I want you to enjoy this octave shootout. I hope you did. We'll see you next time. This is Chuck Bailey of the Bass Channel. Take care.